Good evening. I'm Roz Abrams. One of the most powerful men in New York organized crime is the target of a bomb threat. Police found a bomb outside the Little Italy hangout of reputed crime boss John Gotti. They were tipped to the bomb by an anonymous caller who said he left a gift for Gotti outside the Ravenite Social Club. The so-called Dapper Don is often in the spotlight, making him the envy and target of other mafia families. David Navarro is in Little Italy right now with more on this bomb threat. David.
Roz, John Gotti arrived at his social club about 15 minutes ago, and it seems he's a very popular man these days. Here he is pictured on this week's People magazine, where they call him a sleek, shrewd killer who laughs at the law and settles scores the old-fashioned way. It's the kind of reputation that breeds enemies. And as he faces life behind bars for a bungled hit job, never before has his life been in more peril. Today, that peril might have manifested itself in the form of a bomb threat right here in front of the social club he's made famous. Police immediately cordoned off a two-block area of Little Italy this morning after they discovered a crudely made bottle bomb inside a small box on the steps of the Ravenite Social Club. The police were tipped off to the bomb after an anonymous call phoned a 24-hour hotline at the Organized Crime Control Bureau to say there's a gift for John Gotti at the social club. Upon closer examination, the bottle contained only a small amount of powder, barely enough to do any damage, and it was made so poorly that it was unlikely it could have detonated, leaving police to wonder who made the phone call.
We can assume that it's either a warning to Gotti that perhaps he is vulnerable, that his club is vulnerable. Could have been a prank. It could have been a lot of things, and we really don't have any clear indication at this point.
48-year-old John Gotti recently pleaded not guilty of ordering the death of a troublesome union leader in 1986. He faces up to life in jail for the failed assassination and remains free on $100,000 bail. Police say they're not looking at this morning's threat as the opening salvo of a renewed mob war. However, they are not ruling out the possibility that it was a calling card. Reporting from Little Italy, David Navarro, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Lawyers for John Gotti will plead their case Tuesday for a retrial of the reputed mafia boss on murder and racketeering charges. Monday, they failed to persuade a federal judge to postpone sentencing, which also is scheduled for Tuesday. Gotti faces life in prison. His defense team claims the government pressured 2 jurors to convict Gotti.
For 60-year-old Andrew Maloney, a West Point graduate with 6 children, leaving Brooklyn is done with some sadness. For 6 years, Maloney presided over a staff of 150 attorneys who prosecuted some of the biggest cases of the 80s and early 90s. The district convicted State Assembly Speaker Mel Miller of fraud and put away Pappy Mason of South Jamaica, Queens, a drug lieutenant accused of masterminding the execution of rookie police officer Edward Byrne. John Gotti's brother Gene also went to prison on heroin charges after 2 mistrials.
There were at least 4 cases tampered with by the Gambino crime family.
After John Gotti's well-publicized acquittal in federal court in 1987, Maloney recently convicted a juror for tampering in that case. And even though the district won its bitter 1992 case against Gotti, the prosecutor says he doesn't gloat over the victory.
I feel sorry for any human being that's going to be locked away for life. Certainly, if anybody deserves it, a John Gotti type does.
Today, John Gotti's longtime advocate, Bruce Cutler, reacted to Maloney's resignation.
Mary, I'm hoping that with this new administration in Washington, we get some really fair-minded prosecutors in office.
Maloney, for his part, notes that leaders of the city's 5 organized crime families are now either indicted or jailed. He, like Otto Obermeyer, now plan on going into private law practice, although Obermeyer conceded he would have liked to be chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission if Bush had been reelected. Now he jokes about another job possibility.
I was thinking first of becoming a journalist.
We think he's joking. Both Obermeyer and Maloney were originally nominated for their office by Republican Senator Alphonse D'Amato, who recently won re-election. A couple of years back, when the senator was under investigation, Maloney removed his office from the probe to avoid any possible conflict of interest. Ernie, Carroll.
Mary, what about successors? Have they named anyone yet?
We're told now in the Eastern District that Mary Jo White will be the interim U.S. Attorney, and we don't know about the Southern District as of yet, but the U.S. Attorney General can name an interim person for about 90 days, and then probably President Clinton, when he takes office, will do the rest.
They have to really change gears.
I know. I didn't even know this until this happen.
Yeah.
That depending on the party in power, that really decides who's going to be in the U.S. Attorney's Office.
As far as their work goes, do they feel that they've broken the backs of organized crime in the city?
Mr. Maloney said today, not quite, but he thinks there have been significant dents made into all the hierarchies of the 5 families. He thinks that if the work of the last 10 years is continued for another 10 years, then what we might see would be maybe small-scale loan sharking and gambling operations in the city, but nothing like what we saw in the past, like penetration of unions, labor racketeering, things like that.
Very interesting. Mary, thank you.
Jail crime boss John Gotti has lost another legal battle. A federal appeals court has refused to overturn his racketeering and murder convictions. Gotti claimed he was denied his choice of counsel when the judge in the case dismissed his longtime lawyer, Bruce Cutler. But the appeals court ruled the judge was right in barring Cutler, whom it describes as, quote, house counsel to the Gambinos. The FBI says this latest defeat may spell the end of Gotti's power.
Up till today, John Gotti was still in charge through his brother and his son. I think that all changes today. I think it will take a few days, or probably a few weeks or a month before we really know who's in charge and who's calling the shots.
Well, regardless of who ends up running the mob, Cutler says he will appeal today's decision all the way to the Supreme Court. Jack?
Murderous mob chief John Gotti may be locked away for life, but the FBI is not finished with him yet. The feds are now trying to seize 2 New York social clubs that served as Gotti's mob hangouts. They've also targeted a restaurant and a pair of garment center businesses where Gotti was listed as a hardworking zipper salesman.
We think that is a sham, a total sham, and that's one of the ways that they use the properties they acquire, as a sham or a salary front to cover their clandestine criminal activities.
Gotti was convicted last April of several murders along with racketeering and tax evasion.
John Gotti, Sammy the Bull Gravano. It was once a match made in mob heaven. But now the one-time Teflon Don is seeking revenge against the man who helped send him up the river. News Channel 4's John Miller knows the Gotti story better than anybody, and tonight he has the latest.
There was a time when they were the best of friends. John Gotti promoted Sammy the Bull Gravano ahead of many old-timers to make him the #2 man in the Gambino crime family. And Sammy paid him back by becoming the star witness against him at the trial. Now Gotti's lawyers think they may get Gotti a new trial because they say Gravano lied on the stand by not admitting to 2 murders he allegedly committed. And Gotti's lawyers say they can back that up with jailhouse witnesses who were actually involved. Jim Fox, who oversaw the Gotti case for the FBI, suggested today the Gambino crime family has influenced, coached, and paid witnesses before.
One more very important thing in all this concerning John Gotti himself. He's under lockdown in a federal maximum security penitentiary, under lockdown 23 hours a day. He's been in jail 5 years. He knows he'll never get out. As tough as he is, he's got to be getting desperate.
In the court papers, Gotti's lawyers also charged that Gravano didn't tell the FBI about 5 tons of cocaine he was involved in bringing up from Colombia, and that by failing to tell them that, Gravano broke his deal with the feds to tell all, and now he should go to jail. During the Gotti trial, Gravano admitted to 19 murders, said he only committed one of them as the trigger man himself, and said he had nothing to do with drugs, although he said sometimes people who were involved with drugs got killed by the family. But what difference does it all make? If he left out a couple of murders or even a few tons of cocaine, what's that got to do with John Gotti's conviction? Well, Gotti's lawyers have a very simple legal theory. They say if they can prove that Gravano lied about himself, then that maybe he lied about Gotti too.
Why would Gravano confess to 19 of 21 murders? Why not 21 of 21? And if he confesses to 19 murders, why not admit he was involved in drugs? It just doesn't make sense.
The Gotti case has already been to the U.S. Supreme Court and back. And now, just a day before the appeal deadline would run out for good, Gotti's team is giving it another try. John Miller, News Channel 4.
Well, John also reports the Gotti camp claims the government will do anything to cover for Gravano's lie.